Hello, world. My name is Max Stein, and I love video games.
I'm the Megabuck, and I really love video games.
I'm Rafa Boy, and I love video games.
I'm Vinny, and I love you, video games.
And welcome to the Game Treasure Podcast, where we talk treasured video games of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, except no, we don't. Not today.
Nuh-uh.
Today, we're just talking video games of yesterday. Because we are doing the first of a series of podcasts that we'll eventually end up doing called the Console Carousel.
Yeah.
So
Put the name for it. I like that.
the Console Carousel, in which we deep dive into our top 5 favorite games for different consoles. So I was thinking, I was inspired by those rotating like things that hold pies. And they spin the pies, and they have the lights on them. And
It's
imagine
a great,
what if-
big, beautiful tomorrow. Oh, wrong carousel. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Oh man, one time I got stuck on that. Right? No, that's another story. So today's console of focus is we're going as far back as I can stomach because
It's before you were born.
yeah, it's right before I was born. We are dedicating the entirety of today to the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Let's go, baby.
That's right, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Me love you.
That beautiful two-tone gray box that we all love so very much. So
games.
we are going to do a sort of extended round table, right? Of our 5 favorite games for the NES. Now, we're not going to pick the top 5 games for the NES, right? Because listen, this is our pie carousel. I don't know if we like the same pie, okay? There is no universally best pie, I guess, I'd say. So this is our NES carousel. So we're going to put the games that we like. Maybe it's because we played them the most. Maybe it's because they impacted us the hardest, whatever that may be. But first, I wanted to cover the NES in general because it has a harrowing, interesting background. And thankfully, we have an in-game historian in the Megabuck. Buck, can you please educate us a little bit on the Nintendo Entertainment System?
Yeah, right after I take these off because they're making me go cross-eyed.
Yeah.
These are my original Rad Racer 3D glasses from our copy of Rad Racer when I was a kid. Fun fact, Rad Racer was the first game developed by Squaresoft.
Oh, wow, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that wild?
That's
I did
Squaresoft.
not know that.
Final Fantasy Squaresoft.
Wow.
Yes, we are talking today about the Nintendo Entertainment System, originally released in North American markets in 1985. But it goes back way before then to a little Hanafuda card company named Nintendo over in Japan. Nintendo originally made Hanafuda cards, which is a weird Japanese game that none of us know anything about, so don't worry about
Nope.
it.
Koi.
So the story goes, Nintendo had been making arcade machines before that, right? They made Donkey Kong, some other big hits in the very early 80s. So Nintendo wanted to get into the home console market. In fact, they had already started to in Japan with the Family Computer, or the Famicom, because everything in Japan is shortened into smaller words, like
That's funny.
Skabo and all kinds of things like that.
Yes.
So Nintendo had originally entered in distribution negotiations with a little company called Atari. That's right. Atari was
Okay.
originally supposed to distribute the
Okay.
Nintendo in America. But the story goes, in the CES Consumer Electronics Show in 1983, Atari discovered that Coleco, on their Coleco Atom computer, had illegal copies of Donkey Kong on it, which Atari had the rights to with Nintendo. Atari was not happy about this. The guy in charge of the program at Atari, the CEO Ray Casera, was fired the next month, and then the deal just completely dissipated. So that partnership completely went away.
Wow.
Fast forward just a little bit, and Nintendo was planning on bringing that console themselves to the American markets. So we fast forward to the beginning of 1985 when the Famicom, the Japanese Nintendo, had sold 2.5 million units by that point.
Good
And
lord.
Nintendo had, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And Nintendo had, especially for those times.
At the time, right?
Yeah,
Right,
exactly. So they had announced their plans to do that to show off the Advanced Video Entertainment System, the AVS, later that year, later named the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. The American press was really skeptical about this because in '83 is when the video game crash happened. Atari was still
Right.
the biggest player, but there were many other consoles like ColecoVision and Television and all of the multitude of PC kind of video games like ZX Spectrum, and some of those were really great, but it was oversaturated and the software was mostly crap. Like you've always heard about ET and the
Right.
others that were developed
Right.
in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
So many games, yes.
There's so many games. And so there wasn't any kind of governing body that said these don't suck. And and so Nintendo, made it part of their journey to make that, the Nintendo seal of quality a big part of it. So the first Famicom hardware actually made its way to North America in 1984. If you guys have ever seen the Nintendo Versus system, the cabinets, the arcade cabinets, Excitebike versus Mario versus Castlevania versus
Oh,
Okay.
I was reading about these.
those arcade, yeah, and though you've played them before, I know because I used to own one. But they
There you
all of
go.
those systems, they had a ported version of the Famicom hardware in it. This was part of Nintendo's genius plan to slowly bring their stuff over to the States. By the time the NES launched, they'd sold 100,000 of those arcade cabs, and they were super popular in American arcades. And at the
Mm.
same time, because these were pretty much all first-party Nintendo titles, Nintendo was also able to tweak them and make them better and make sure when they launched that they were going to be fun games for people to play. They were basically test marketing us in the arcades, right?
Ah.
So now we jump forward to the 1985 Consumer Electronics Show, where they showed off their redesigned by Lance Barr, not the gray ugly one that I sent to Mac that I want him to show, because that's the early concept with the type, the keyboard built into it. It looks like crap,
Mhm.
and they scrapped it because they didn't want it to look like a computer. It has entertainment in the name on purpose because it's an entertainment system, right? So Lance Barr designed this featuring the zero insertion force. Look, we all know what a toaster NES, toaster NES looks like, right?
Yeah.
It opens up in the front.
Classic.
You put the card in and you push the cartridge down, right?
Mhm.
That was for two reasons. One, just like in some of the redesign and other consoles where the cartridge goes in the top, you have issues with the pins being too tight or too loose very initially, right? And two, people knew what VCRs were, and cassette decks were by 85, cassette decks were insanely popular. They wanted this to be a familiar motion. And old VCRs went in, or they went in and they went down.
So
Wow.
it was
They-
purely like a thing of like feeling. Like I
Yes.
wanted to feel
A
a certain
muscle
way.
memory.
They
Wow.
wanted it to be familiar to what was popular at the time.
Awesome.
right? So they release and they test market these in mid 1985. 17 titles launched along the Nintendo NES there. And 10 years later, when they finally stopped producing it in 1995, they made approximately 62 million NES consoles.
Ooh.
And a
Wow,
10-year life
incredible.
cycle to boot. So
Incredible.
It
Cheers.
changed the video game market forever, I say. It
Honestly,
turned it
changed
around,
my
life,
saved
I know
it.
that
Yes.
much.
yes. There was literally an electronic games magazine, which mostly covered those consoles and computer games at the time, that said, quote, "The video game market in America has virtually disappeared, and that this could be a miscalculation on Nintendo's part."
Ooh.
Eat your words, Electronic
Wrong.
Games magazine.
They should go
Nice
back to Hanafuda cards, honestly.
Nice Konami
Yeah,
track and field shirt there, Buck.
Well, thank
yeah.
you.
Wow.
That's nice.
Well, gosh dang, the Nintendo Entertainment System. We owned one growing up. I was gonna say we should maybe touch on our own personal connection to the system.
This is our original top loader, Mac. I still have it.
Boy, oh boy, let me tell you. I think Buck has once said before that he was the first kid in his neighborhood to have 50 Nintendo games.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking to someone the other day about how we were going to do this episode, and they said, "Yeah, we had like a couple video games, but I wasn't really." And I was like, "Man, when I was growing up, I couldn't. I couldn't even play them all. There were so many. We had this huge
Yeah.
racks of Nintendo, and you could. Some of these games were a bit difficult, so you maybe only wanted to play them for a couple minutes before you needed to put them down. But boy, oh boy, many afternoons spent playing Nintendo for me. Buck,
Yeah.
how do you relate? How do you feel about the Nintendo?
I would feel I feel the need for the Nintendo by putting on my special belt given to me by my friend Peter Stole. Here, let me do this. Let me
What's
put
he got?
this-
What's he got?
Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
Let me put on my
man.
belt with my zapper.
Oh,
See.
dude, that's incredible.
God, you're a dork.
My friend Peter made this for me. No, he made this years ago at AFO. And when he saw, after the weekend was, not even before the weekend is over, when he saw how longingly I looked at this, he just gave it to me. He was just like, Buck, you are going to appreciate this so much more than I ever would. And I have, Peter. I've
For
been
anyone
sitting in my
listening,
display
it
case
is a
forever.
Captain N in the game. What's the show?
Captain N, the Game Master,
Yes.
NES belt, complete with zapper.
It's got a Nintendo controller for the belt
Yes.
buckle, and it's got a
He-
sidearm holster with a.
He had extra
zapper
buttons.
in
He
it.
even put the buttons on top because in the cartoon, these buttons did like slow motion
Yes.
power jump. Yeah, it was attention to
Beautiful.
detail. Good job, Peter.
Yeah.
The Nintendo was everything to me as a kid. If you look on Retro's website, it talks about the story of this. One of the first video game I played was Excite Bike Versus in the arcades when I was like 5 years old.
Mhm.
And after that, it was like, Mom, Dad, give me a Nintendo. Mom, Dad, please give me a Nintendo. I gotta have. That's what I wanted for every birthday and Christmas. I wanted Nintendo games for
Yep.
everything, for good grades, for whatever. It was like, what do you want? I want a Nintendo game. I want that one from Nintendo Power. I want Mike Tyson's Punch Out. I want Mario 3. I want, and that was my childhood. I didn't play outside very much. I was a dork and loved my fucking Nintendo.
Hell yeah, dude. That's a fucking men. Let's go.
Hell yeah, dude.
Raph, did you have any personal connection with the Nintendo growing up?
Absolutely. I think I had it. Honestly, it was in my home before I was born. I'm pretty sure. I think my sisters used to play it quite a bit. I remember watching my sister play Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 3 a lot. But yeah, I have actually. I have my top loader as well.
Hell yeah.
There you
Still
go.
have it. That was actually the second one I owned. I had the toaster 1st, but dude, that thing just ignited a passion for gaming in me so fast, honestly. Like the second that I was able to, get the controller and be like, oh, I can move the little character around, I can have an adventure. Like that's awesome. Yeah, man. Pure nostalgia when I think about it. Just good feelings all around.
Hell yeah, Mr. Venicor, how about yourself?
Man, it's so much of what I would say about the Nintendo. It would just mirror the things that Buck said. It was a defining piece of my childhood, without question. I mean, and the big thing for me is I got to play so many games because we had a very robust video store. Back in the 80s and 90s, even just barely into the early 2000s, the whole fall of Blockbuster kind of story. I mean, video stores were pretty prime time. It was mainstream. So whenever I got some kind of reward or something special for the weekend or whatever, I wanted to go to the video store as a Network Video in Destin, Florida, and I wanted to rent that new Nintendo game that came out. And then when it came time for birthdays, Christmas, like Buck said, good grades, I would wash cars and help with chores at home so I could get little chore dollars and buy my video games. Fun fact, my very first video game I ever bought with my own money, I was 6 years old, Final Fantasy 1.
Nice.
Oh,
The boy had taste.
I swear that game helped
Connoisseur, I
me
see.
learn how to read.
Having rental stores back then is something that we shouldn't overlook, because that was how you got to play more of these games, right? And it's how you got to try some of them out.
Access, exactly.
It did. Really when I was looking at this and we were talking about our lists, one of the things that really struck me hard was this is not about which of the games were most popular, like Mac was touching on earlier. This wasn't even about the ones that might have struck us the best. It's the ones we sometimes just had accessibility to.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't know a great game existed. You just didn't know it existed. These were the great
Mhm.
ones that you got to play. So I find like our lists vary a whole lot, even me and Max a little bit, even though we're in the same household, because they're the ones that you ran into, or when you went to a store, or someone for your birthday thought, yeah, little Kyle likes cars. Let's buy him RC Pro-Am, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny. We were talking about our original system. I actually do have my OG original toaster system.
Love it.
It has some
Whoa, with the
Nintendo Power
stickers.
stickers and
Man.
a little
Stickers and
dinosaur sticker
everything.
from like 1985 and a
That
little
is
Love it.
happy face
lovely.
from
Is that a
kindergarten.
Cowboy Mario there? Is that, or
That's
is that a
it's
doctor?
no, it's a Cowboy Mario. You got that right. And then
Oh,
there's a Samus,
Wow.
and
sick.
then
Probably like a
and then
gumshoe promotion or something.
Super
Yeah.
Mario Brothers on the flap there. So
Wow.
man, yeah, that was it. And the video stores were a big deal. And also, I hung out with a lot of kids who, I was big into sports as a kid. I was very outdoorsy, but it's funny, the other sports kids I hung out with, a lot of them had Nintendos too. So
Sure.
whenever we would go, like, spend the night at someone's house, we'd play Nintendo games in the evening. Such a staple part of my childhood, like, no question.
Amazing.
So many sleepovers around that console, honestly. Like
It's true.
looking back, it's like
Yeah.
all hanging out with my friends, sleeping over at their house, and just playing Nintendo all night.
Absolutely.
And you're like a decade younger than us.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
still, the console
so
came
awesome.
out before you guys were born. I mean, how
Yep.
much, when I was
Yeah.
doing this research and especially looking at some of the history things I didn't know, one thing I did not know is that the Famicom, the Japanese Nintendo, which remember came out 2 years earlier, they did not stop production of it until 2003.
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
And
No, I did not know
Nintendo
that.
Nintendo has the very last one that came off the assembly line. It's part of their museum. They've lent it out to like big gaming conventions in Japan and whatnot.
Bro.
But
Wow.
Wow.
right?
It's rad, man.
That's dope. All right. Listen, I'm going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and we're going to list off our favorite Nintendo games. All right. We're back here. Gentlemen, we could talk about this for a long time. So we should set timers. I'd say we got about 12 to 15 minutes
Right.
each.
Especially for
Talk about
Megabuck.
our 5 favorite Nintendo games. You may spend your time however you want. If you want to talk about one game for that long, go right ahead. If you want to disperse it amongst your games, go right ahead. I will go first. All right.
You can
I'm
do
going
it,
to-
buddy.
Number
going to-
five,
I'm
five,
going to
five.
do mine, yes.
Are we gonna do 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4, 4?
Yeah.
Or are we gonna do? Or are you gonna do just all 5 of yours?
right.
I think we should do all of ours at once. So like I'll do all of
I
mine.
agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, I like that idea.
And we'll
too.
go
I'm gonna
5, 4,
I'm gonna grab
3,
a
2,
drink
1.
while you intro.
Go
me.
ahead. Yes. All right. So, all right. My list, contemplating this list, very interesting because Buck pointed out the accessibility thing. By the time I got access to this system, accessibility was not an issue.
Because
We
my
had-
brother was such a nerd.
I was 8 years late, so I was by 8 years late. I mean 8 years younger than Buck, and so by the time I was around, he had all these games already. So when assembling them, you have to understand that I was very young playing this system. A lot of these games, I was very, very childish. So in terms of accessibility, it was really which ones I could play.
Right.
That is to say,
Right.
some of these games are actually pretty difficult. Like so difficult that even if I wanted to play Mario 3 because it's good, I really couldn't. You know what I mean? So when I was assembling this list, I just thought about what games did I play the most
Mm-hmm.
when I would sit down, because when Buck got the newer systems, they just put the Nintendo in my room when I was like, 7 or something like this, like just 5 or something. And so I would just rifle through them on Saturday or whatever, and just play some of the ones. So I like them for interesting reasons, I guess. So don't mock me when I
No,
when I
come
list some
on.
of these things. Okay, so number 5. All right, getting to the point. Number 5, Metal Storm,
Oh, hell yes.
1991, published by IREM.
Boom.
Ha.
That game is tight as hell. Now I know what you're thinking, Mac. You just said that these games were hard for you. That game is very hard if you've ever
But it's
played
fucking
it.
awesome.
But it's
Yeah.
fucking awesome.
Look at this mech.
One thing you have to understand is that the sprite work for this game is very good. The
Mhm.
mech is like a nice size and it's like a really cool design. It looks like a Zaku or something like from
Mhm.
Gundam. Like it's like bulky and it's got this big long head that almost looks like a ship or something.
Oh
And you've got a
man,
cool
yeah, that's
gun.
cool.
It's very
And
Macrossy,
I looked
right?
it up.
Look,
It's
look at that thing.
yeah, very
Yeah,
Macrossy.
that's so Macross.
So
Wow.
the year is 2501, and you play as the M308 Gunner, which again I covered. It has an incredible sprite, and its main function, like the main catch, it's basically a side-scrolling platformer. But the main catch of this game is that you can reverse gravity
At will.
at will. Like you just press like up and B or something, or down and B, and it'll whoop whoop. And so wherever you, there's like moments when you're doing like
awesome.
a hallway, and both ends of like both sides of a hallway are electricity, and so you have to like do and like bounce yourself like through the hallway, like
Mhm.
like raising and lowering
Yeah.
gravity. It was very hard, but I just remember playing it a lot because it looked so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Couldn't get past like the first or second level, but it was so fun. It didn't matter.
But it looked so good.
Mhm.
I would just pop it in and be like, maybe today, and then no,
Yeah.
not today.
I've never
Um,
beat it, but it's
yeah.
awesome.
My number 4 is actually a game that I do not believe was in Buck's collection growing up, actually. But I ended up playing this game with a friend later in high school because he had a Nintendo. This is TNC Surf Designs Wood Water Rage.
Alan Priester owned a copy, so I never pushed mom or dad to buy it for me.
That game. I
This
loved
game
that game, dude.
kicks ass. 1988,
Yeah.
published by LJN. It is literally it is literally sponsored by Town and Country Surf Designs, like the magazine, and it's developed by Atlas. I didn't know
back in
that.
the day.
Back in the way day. So basically, this game is just like divided into these 3 mini games. It's the Big Wave Encounter, the Street Skate Session, or
Everybody's
Wood and
favorite.
Water Rage, which is just both of them. But what I have to say about this game is that both the games are side-scrolling, like sort of like in the skateboard one, you're sort of dodging these traps that come at you. You're moving left to right, and in the surfing one is awesome. You're like riding this wave, and there's like this sort of like there's a mechanic where you can feel yourself getting pulled down by the curl of the wave, and you sort of have to kick back and go back up the wave in order to continue to progress left to right. And there's like obstacles, so sometimes you gotta like jump over a fucking like seagull or something with your surfboard.
You get extra
And-
points for that, though, right?
It's true. It's true.
It's true, and then
It's true.
you could surfboard as a gorilla or a motherfucking cat in a tuxedo, and it's fucking tight as hell.
Spoilers, they made a sequel to it called Thrilla Safari, and it's terrible.
Oh, really? I did not realize
That's
that.
tragic.
But yeah, really, really cool game. My number, let's see, 5, 4, 3. My number 3, Super Dodgeball, baby. Let's go. 1989,
Good
published
choice.
by Techno.
Great choice.
This is, I believe, the second in the Kunai Kun games. So Techno
Yeah.
had this like mascot, this character,
Kunio-kun, yeah.
Kunio-kun, yes. So Super Dodgeball is just there's 2 modes of gameplay. You can either play a 1-player World Cup mode, or there's a 2-player versus mode. So like the teams included in this game are USA Pro All Stars, England, India, Iceland. They all have different costumes. China, Kenya, Japan, and
USSR.
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 all the characters like on each team, like they all have individual rosters. They all look different, and they all
Kinda.
have different kind of yes. They use this family of of models within like the Techno.
Right.
It's like the yeah. But and they all have different like special moves. This is the most important thing
Yes.
because there's like you can just throw the ball, you can pass the ball, or you can do like this running special or like jumping special move, and each character has a different special move, and it's so cool. And before each match, you got to put each character in a different position, and like there's this backfield position that's behind enemy lines that you can like toss to that I've never seen in dodgeball before in real life. And then you can so you can like toss it to a backfield guy, and then you like bam, peel him in the back, super tight. Yeah, that game, I remember just playing it so much because it wasn't too hard. And sometimes Buck wouldn't be so rough on me and I could actually play it. The sprites were so cute, and each individual character, I was really always entertained by playing Super Dodgeball.
The music.
So staying in the same family of techno games, my number 2 Nintendo Entertainment System game of all time is River City Ransom.
Oh, so good.
Beautiful.
It was published
So
in
good.
1990 in America, the year of my birth. Yeah, published by Techno again. So this was the third installment, I believe, of those Kunio games. It is a 1 or 2 player side-scrolling RPG
Beat 'em up.
light beat 'em up like game, very similar to Double Dragon. Like
Mhm.
you sort of move up and down a little bit on a screen that you mostly move left to right on. The plot is that you're two Japanese boys whose girlfriends have freaking been kidnapped by a gangster named
Oh,
Slick,
man.
which is a little fucked up. Yeah,
Barf.
that game was
Barf. Yeah.
that game was pretty hard for me to play because it's kind of, as a kid, I was like unfamiliar where to go at any given time.
But we
and
could
it's just
team
kind of
up. It was
esoteric.
2 players simultaneous, which was super cool.
It was 2
That's
players,
cool as
so
hell.
I could follow Buck, and there's like all these items that you can pick up. You can pick up baseball bats and hit people with them, and you can pick up trash cans and chuck them and do all this crazy shit. And most importantly, that shop music, y'all. All right, I could listen to
You
this
ate the
bad
egg
boy
roll.
forever.
I got our buddy Ben one year for Christmas a T-shirt with the sauna scene with Alex bathing, and he has the towel and his little pixelated butt crack.
Yep.
This game, you could go into these shops and you could buy books to learn new moves. You could buy food to regenerate your health. You could go, like Buck said, go to the sauna and take a bath.
It was Yakuza.
It
I
was
was
very
just thinking that.
yes,
Before
it was
that.
very
That's
ahead of its
funny.
time. Really, really cool. Played it a ton. But
That was sorry. Go ahead.
oh, sorry. Oh no, I was going to go on. I was going to
Oh.
move on to my last game.
That game is a great example of the kind of shit they were doing in Japan that we weren't getting because they thought, and rightfully so, we weren't ready for it yet. We were still getting shooters and Marios
Yeah.
and stuff like that, which are great games, but
Mhm.
the depth of River City Ransom would have been lost on 2 out of 3 people that played that game.
Yeah, it's true. All right. Whoop. So,
Oh, well,
little
there it is.
spoilers.
Oh boy.
There it is.
My number 1 game for the Nintendo Entertainment System is Goonies 2.
That's a really good track.
This is just the exploring a room track.
This is
Sounds
just
really
the
good.
exploring the room track in Goonies motherfucking 2, baby. Mac,
So atmospheric.
Goonies 2.
It's
I've
your
never
favorite.
played Goonies 1. What
That's
about
because-
Goonies 1? Well, guess what? Goonies 1 didn't come out in America. It
Yeah,
only came out in Japan.
Oh wow.
And
Okay, I
arcades,
didn't
yeah.
know that.
And arcades. So the original Goonies video game pretty much follows the plot of the Goonies movie. This game just makes some shit up. And
It hits hard.
Dude, it
awesome.
is so hard. It's so hardcore weird.
It
I
is
can't even explain.
so okay. So it is a side-scrolling platformer and a first-person like room exploration game similar to Friday the 13th.
Okay.
Where you're sort of moving, you're using text to like move forward, inspect things, whatever like this.
Boom.
You find things in the first-person perspective mode that you can then use in the side-scrolling mode. The objective of the game is to find all 6 Goonies and Annie, a mermaid, who has been
A mermaid.
captured by
Who was
by
totally made up.
who was totally made up, who has been captured by who else? The Fratellis.
The
Fratellis.
The Fratellis. You got Jake, Francis, Ma, and cousin Pipsqueak.
I love Cousin Pipsqueak.
Cousin
I forgot
Pipsqueak.
about Cousin Pipsqueak. Not gonna lie.
Who you can punch with a yo-yo or throw a boomerang at, or
Molotov
or
cocktails.
or a Molotov cocktail, or plant a bomb.
That is
This
escalated.
game, listen, is hard to play. Okay.
Mhm.
But it is totally, totally bizarre. I wanted to mention you find items, like I said, in the exploration mode that you use in the third-person mode. Most notably, a candle that you get from punching an old woman 5 times in a row.
5 times.
Just unprompted.
this is the-
Hold on, wait. Let me finish. You punch her and she says, ow. And then you punch her again and she goes, ow. And my little child brain wouldn't think to just punch this woman 5 times in a row to get the candle that you need. It's
Because who would?
Because who would?
This was the hot point of the Nintendo Power generation.
It
because
is
you were not punching an old lady 5 times unless you were reading Nintendo Power.
exactly. There were so many
True.
games like this, and this was one of them. And I thought it was. Is it hard to play? Yes. But you know what? I played the shit out of it, and it's once again for one reason.
The Goonies are good
Because
enough.
of this hard ass bop of
Yeah,
the
bro.
Cyndi Lauper song, Goonies, good enough.
They really pulled a lot out of that sound chip here.
God damn! Did you hear that?
That was the first room.
is
That's where
like-
you
this is-
start.
It absolutely. I just remember I had to play it. I tried. I knew it was cool. I wanted to understand how to play it. I couldn't, but it didn't matter because I would just play it to hear dum dun 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 dun.
You know what's funny about that?
Dun.
You had you even seen the Goonies as like a little kid? The
Probably
movie?
not.
I don't think
Probably
so.
not.
And knew what that song is, but it's such a bop, so it doesn't
It's
matter.
so fucking yeah. So yes,
There's a reason he was
If
so
I
hot
had-
for it. It was a hit.
if
Yeah.
I had a carousel with Nintendo games in it, a goofy ass version of Goonies 2 would be dead
So good.
center main display.
Look at this.
Good
I believe this
go.
is Tom Dubois. I think so.
Nice
and Mike,
flex
Yeah.
back,
correct me if
nice
I'm wrong, but
flex.
look at the artwork on this. Like, look at the
Yeah.
like beautiful artwork of the Goonies drawn
Yeah.
like the movie poster.
It
The
was
Like,
really
sprite,
great.
the sprite for Mikey is like a pretty. It's a fine
So
platform.
funny.
It's hard.
It's a
Fine.
sprite.
All
it's
right,
fine.
Buck,
What?
begin your countdown of the 5 favorite Nintendo games for yourself.
Mine are a tad bit eclectic and fun. They're not all super obvious, except for one of them, especially. Number 5, Legendary Wings.
Ooh, interesting.
This was a two perspective shmup. It was definitely like a well, it says 20,000 years in the future, but it definitely has that look of like ancient. You know, look at the dude, like the Icarus, like
Ancient
flying with the
Rome, like
wings.
Greece, yeah.
Yeah, it has lots
Yeah,
of
yeah,
those,
yeah.
but the monsters instead would be like part statue, part dragon, whatever. So part of the game you played was a top-down shooter with this dude with the wings, and another part was a side-scrolling shooter where you went through these mazes. That was when you did like the treasure part. It would flash lucky, lucky on the screen.
Yeah.
This was a port of an arcade game that has better graphics than the Nintendo version does, but not saying this is a super popular great game, but I loved the shit out of this game.
yeah.
and played
it's
it.
hard.
So it was pretty hard, and there were some terrifying moments in it too. Like there was this giant, I don't know if Max shows it all, but this giant mouth thing there
Yeah.
would open up and shoot these tornadoes at you. And one of the coolest thing about this game, it's on the cover too, I just realized. One of the cool things about this game was, though, there were multiple paths you could go. If you could dodge around in a circle around the screen, the tornadoes that this dude was shooting out, you would get to progress in that level and get to a different exit to the level leading to a different spot. So it had multiple pathways that you could go in, which is super cool for a shooter.
Oh, yeah.
My next one, Monster Party,
yes.
which I absolutely loved as a kid. The most notable zombie boss, where you don't do anything, you just watch them dance for like 45 seconds, and then they die.
Yeah.
Monster Party was, I mean, talk about one of the first, like, you know, survival horror kind of games we got on the NES. You played as this kid who this dragon shows up at his door one night and says, like, hey, you got to go kill monsters with me. And he's like, what? And pulls him away to this fantasy land where you play as, his name's probably like Alex or something generic. You have a baseball bat and you're killing like kind of unassuming, not so scary monsters. You gather enough of these, you gather this pill and you can turn into your dragon friend who can fly and shoot. But most of the levels, mostly the first one, that when you get to the halfway point, lightning strikes and everything goes fucking H.R. Geiger on you. Like, it's all gross and contorted, and there's Silent Hill looking leg torso monsters running back and forth, and all the platforms are gross
I remember it
I'm
being
so-
scary as a kid.
You remember this one? Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
remember being
surprised this
scary.
got made on the NES.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Like,
great. Well, it
it's-
was huge in Japan. It was one of those things where when they decided to bring stuff over, it was a weird choice on someone's part. I think maybe they thought we liked monster movies a lot.
Yeah.
So part of the fun one about this one was, is besides navigating the levels, which got increasingly more complicated, the sewers are difficult, the cloud level and the haunted mansion are really fucking difficult to navigate. There's a lot of doors, and the doors lead to small boss fights usually. Like literally you versus a monster. And it's everything from those zombies to that really famous eggplant, Little Shop of Horrors ripoff, like, oh baby, or whatever, and a giant like wooden statue and an onion ring and like the wackiest shit that you fight. Everything turns into a monster. But that was fun because it was something very different. I try to think of like another game like that, let alone horror, and it's like you can't really, right?
Yeah.
Next up on my list is one that I'm sure none of you have played.
Is this number 3?
This is number 3, so this is not the one with the clip yet. This is number 3, and I'm sure none of you have played it because who the fuck has? And that is Xanac for the NES.
Yes. I remember
This is a perfect example of this was available where you were. The artwork on the front looks cool as shit, and that's probably the reason I bought it, because that's the reason why you buy things as a kid. It's a shmup. It's a very cool shmup. You pilot as this ship. Apparently, it's a Xanac.
the Xanac.
But the really interesting part to this game that I didn't know until I was a little bit older was the AI built into it, which it tells you on the box. The AI built into it can ramp up the difficulty like right away, depending on how well you play. Like in this game, halfway through level 1, if you're killing everything and you're grabbing the power-ups, because you can stack power-ups in this, so if you stack them in certain ways, it will throw enemies at you that you on your first playthrough wouldn't see till like level 4, because it just goes, instead of like selecting a harder difficulty, it just ramps up the difficulty based on how good you're doing.
That's it.
Which is which is really cool for the time, right? I didn't really know that. I just noticed it happens sometimes. But so the weapons were all had different numbers, and if you like number 7, I remember was like this giant disc that would float just enough in front of you. If you grabbed multitudes of the same numbers without grabbing another number, you could power up the same one. And so this is a perfect example of a shmup where like if you had the power-ups, it was great. Once you died, you were like, fuck.
Yeah, I remember trying to play that a lot as well. That's another good-looking game. I remember the ship looking really nice and the power-ups looking, I don't know, very satisfying.
They made 2 sequels that I've never played, actually, because they're both pricey. They made a sequel for the NES called Gunac, and they made a PS1 version called Xanac X Xanac.
Nice.
That's also supposed to be super awesome. Number 2, you should all have on your list, but that's okay. We varied our list, so shame on you. But that's one with the clip if you have it.
Fucking good ass song.
Yes.
Little Nemo, the Dream Master for the NES.
I love that game. I love it so much.
Anybody who's played it loves this game because it's cute.
Throw that candy.
Yeah, you threw the candy into particular monsters because then you could wear them like a suit, and maybe prior Mario 3 even that happened.
You put them to sleep, and they got the cute little bubble comes up. Another one that I wanted to play so bad. The music is so good. I wanted to understand. It was so hard.
This is a game I did beat as a child just because I played it so much.
Yeah.
It was so much. It was really neat. Like Venny was just mentioning too. You'd throw candy at certain monsters. Like in the first level, there was a toad. You threw candy at him, and then you could wear him like a suit.
Yeah.
And while he sucked at moving, if you jumped in the water, he could swim really well.
Yeah.
Later on, there's a level where you can do that in a bee suit. You actually get the ability to fly and whatnot. And so it takes you through these different dream worlds from like the comic book and the movie would have cute stuff like that too, until you fight the nightmare bad guy is at the end. And I just remember that because you have that wand that you have, and by the time you get to the last boss, you can literally reel back and shoot these big burst balls at the bad guy, because the character himself didn't control super well, and that was kind of on purpose. You were supposed to feel a little helpless, I think, in that respect. But this one's got a lot of bangers in the music too. It was also made by Capcom because they made awesome fucking games back then.
Did.
I almost made like Rescue Rangers on my list too, and then I was like, no, I've got some other fun ones.
Yeah.
as
Dude,
well.
honestly, the sprite work on this game is gorgeous.
It
Yeah.
really
I'm
is.
looking at
Yeah,
a lot
it
of
is.
like some snapshots of the
Mhm.
game, and it looks beautiful. I didn't think that the
Mhm.
NES could get sprites that look this good. This is
Yeah.
gorgeous. Wow.
And
Mhm.
a little bit later in its lifespan,
Yep.
I'm sure too. I forget the year
Right.
that game came out, but most certainly, yeah. Number 1.
Yep. You gotta.
Oh, big surprise.
I had a hard time not making every game in my top 5 a Mega Man game,
Yeah.
but my personal favorite for the NES, Mega Man 2.
Hell yeah. That's the one.
We don't have enough time
Solid
to listen to all
choice.
the bangers on this soundtrack
Yep.
because yeah, I'm split between Mega Man 2 and 3 because I actually love them both. But when I think back as a
Yeah.
kid, I probably played this one a heck of a lot more. It's probably this game's fault, Venny, that I make lyrics up to songs because I would play these. Like, I'm pretty sure when I was 9 years old or 8 years old, the lyrics to Flashman's level were, because she's a real wild eater. She's a
Nice.
really wild eater. Like, I made up words for these songs
Listen,
when I was a
listen,
child.
guys. You don't know Buck personally like we do, but you can give this man any song on the planet and he will make up his own lyrics on the fly. It is a talent. I have never met anybody else who could do this. It's
And it'll
actually
be
quite
fun.
impressive.
Sometimes it's even good.
Sometimes it's good.
That's right. But the selection of, Robot Masters, if you ever played Mega Man 1, the biggest thing is that Mega Man 1 was great, but it was like testing. They were trying to figure something out, right?
Mhm.
And Mega Man 2, they did it. Like
Yeah.
they nailed it, They just went with this formula for the rest of the whole game. Got rid of the points at the top, changed a couple little things, boom, nailed it for the next 40 iterations of the
Mhm.
series. So if you've never played any Mega Mans, you start with 2 or 3 because they are some of the most fun ones. I played this so much as a kid.
God, 2 is so good. 2 is
Yeah.
unbelievably good.
Definitely
And
probably the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah, Mega Man 2, right at the top of Buck's Carousel. Mr. Venacor, would you like to go next?
Sure. I would love to go next. My NES tastes were very, very eclectic, just because between myself, the aforementioned access with video stores, and then all my little friends as kids, everybody had a Nintendo. Even like the super sporty kids loved Nintendo. So I got to play a lot of different games. Didn't necessarily own all of these. But my number 5 is a game from Konami called Jackal.
Oh,
And Jackal
Hmm.
also debuted under the title Top Gunner. It's an overhead run and gun video game, and you play as a Jeep. You play as this this armed Jeep with guns, and I just remember the controls on this game were so good.
mhm.
And just so it was so easy to pick up and play. The objective was you start at the bottom of the level. It was like a bottom to top scrolling kind of
Mhm.
game, and your objective was to rescue all the little POWs at the war camps and stuff like that, and like blow up all the enemy guns and stuff like that, and then get to the helipad to be the little chopper would come along and they would grab your Jeep and you'd be airlifted to the next stage. It was very simple, but it was just so much fun, and
Yeah.
I played that game over and over at a friend's house. I never actually owned it. If
Nice.
I'm over the house, I want to play Jackal.
All right, you're number 4.
Number 4, and this, I think I was the only person I knew at the time who played this game. Bucky O'Hare.
What?
I didn't play it because I got made fun of so much for the cartoon.
The 90s cartoon. It was based on this cartoon of this
Bucky O'Hare.
this green space rabbit that wore a red spacesuit with his little band of merry men. And it was a side scroller, like a little side scroller platformer, shooting your laser beams kind of game. And
So silly.
and you have to find all your friends. And I vividly remember at one point, like one of the later levels of the game, all your friends get like abducted and they get like turned into evil versions of themselves, and you have to go find them and fight each one of them and bring them back to their senses. And then you could go forth and like challenge the final boss. You could like swap characters. They each had their own different way
cool.
of playing.
Huh, yeah.
It was a really, really
That's kinda
solid
cool,
game.
like that.
The cartoon was good too, in my opinion. Like, you know,
Mutants and aliens and Troads beware.
they were
Never
fighting.
heard
Yeah,
of this
yeah,
game.
yeah. The Toads were the enemy.
That's funny.
Bucky, Captain Bucky,
Bucky
O'Hare,
O'Hare.
mutants, aliens, and toads beware. I think there was a breakfast cereal too.
Of course there
for a while.
Okay, I'll do your number 3.
Number three. Final Fantasy 1. Final Fantasy Part 1.
Wow.
Wow.
I thought
been
it
a
would be
Final
his number 1.
Nope, believe it or
Oh,
not my number
interesting.
1. Final Fantasy 1 holds a special place in my heart because it was the first game I ever bought with my own money. I was 6
Hell
years
yeah.
old. I was in the
The
first
tastes of
grade.
this kid.
Telling you. I think I had it figured out from 34 years ago that I was a massive Final Fantasy fan. Still am to this day. It's still my
awesome.
favorite franchise of all time. And I was at that age where I didn't understand a lot of what the words were. Like I had to ask my mom to come in and help me read some. Mom, what's this? Oh, it says fire. Oh, that's why. Okay. Okay, cool.
And this is coming from a guy whose
Great.
mom also would beat these games. Like his mom beat Final Fantasy Mystic Quest when they
Before
were
I did.
kids.
Wow.
Before I did.
That's hard.
That's cool.
Obscure.
This woman beat Adventures of Link before I did, and that game is
that's
hard.
And before I did also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to beat the boss in the second castle for her, and she was gone. She took it from there, no problem.
Wow.
Yeah. My number 2, and oh boy, I am beyond a massive Castlevania fan. Shout out to the Bit Brigade for their Castlevania
Nice.
shirt up on screen if you're watching.
Yes.
Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse.
Ooh,
Oh
interesting one.
My
Hot damn.
God.
That game's so
Every-
good.
Not
everything-
Simon's Quest. I like it.
Everything about Simon's Quest, I didn't like that game. I'm
As a
sorry.
kid, it had
It's
two.
hard,
It had
yeah,
two itis, whatever you want
Yeah,
to call it.
yeah.
A
right?
lot of people
Yeah.
didn't
Sequelitis.
like Simon's Quest.
Sequelitis,
actually,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that game.
I
But
agree.
part 3 just clicked from the
Yeah.
very, very first menu screen and that music. And then you click
Ooh,
into
yeah.
you press start, and you get into that very first stage. Da 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 da.
So
Da
then,
da da.
how much
Yeah.
did you enjoy then when I introduced you to the Japanese version, which had the extra sound
Bro,
chips?
Yeah.
oh my God. Come to find out, the American version did not have all of the audio because of
Benny
the
had never
sound
heard
chip.
this till like a month ago.
I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah. It's incredible.
blew my
the
mind.
Japanese
You blew
one
my mind.
is badass. I'll put it in here.
Just on a side note for Bit Brigade, the day after this episode will be airing next week or that night, they'll be here in town in Orlando if you guys are around, and they're doing Castlevania 1
Wow, there you
Beautiful.
go.
and Zelda
Beautiful.
1.
My number 1 game of all time, or for the NES, my personal
Yes.
number 1 for the NES. You guys know I'm a massive RPG fan. I always have been, even though Final Fantasy was not the best RPG on the NES. In my number 1 game was Dragon Warrior 4.
Nice.
Whoa.
Nice.
Wow.
Also called Dragon Quest 4
Yeah.
Chapters of the Chosen in Japan.
Yeah.
Dragon Warrior 4 had it all. It had the story, the dialogue, it was like the first Octopath Traveler. You actually had to go and play the different stories from the different heroes separately. And then in the final chapters of the game, all the storylines converged. This was an NES game, guys.
So cool.
Yes.
And the
Kick-ass.
combat is and hats off to Akira Toriyama and his amazing work on the Dragon Quest series. It was that classic Akira Toriyama Dragon Quest art all throughout. And I mean, it just so much about it. The classic turn-based gameplay. It was hard. It was not an easy game. It was not a forgiving game. The Dragon Warrior games on the NES were not easy.
Mm-mm.
No.
But none of the RPGs really were at the time.
No.
Deep
yeah,
cut,
not
man.
on Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
No.
Deep
Part
cut.
4
That's an
was
interesting
just
pick.
something special in my opinion. I will
Wow.
hold that one close forever. And Buck actually informed me, and I looked it up afterwards. That game is getting pricey on the
Ooh, a
aftermarket.
boxed copy is like $300 now of
Ooh.
Dragon Warrior
Wow.
4.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
I'm
man.
gonna
Great
play
times.
this game.
Great times.
Shit,
I'm
I had
telling
no
you.
idea.
They
Nice.
have not done any Dragon Warrior collections like they've
Yeah.
done with Final Fantasy. What's up with that?
Yeah, what's
Don't
It
know.
feels like a
Just-
neglected franchise.
I'm just
honestly.
trying to use my podcast powers to will it into existence.
Oh.
Yeah.
Listen, we went Resident Evil 1. Look it up. That's a
It's on you,
Dragon
Square Enix.
Warrior / Quest 4. Interesting top piece for your carousel,
Nice.
Venny. Raph, why don't you go ahead and bring us home with your top 5 NES games, please?
Let's go.
Well,
go.
my number 5 is a game that I actually didn't know, and I played at a friend's house. And like we said before, a lot of sleepovers were had around this game, and that's A Boy and His Blob.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
that game was so cool.
Yeah, right. You know,
Yes.
Yeah.
it was for me. It's straight up nostalgia. Like I said, I never had a copy, and it was only a few times that I really got to play this game and watch someone else play mostly. But man, it left an impression on me. Like it was a game that I always wanted to, like, whenever I'd go to this buddy's house, like, let's play Boy and His Blob.
Yes.
Dude.
But dude, hard as hell game. That game is
Yes.
really difficult.
Raph, if you would love to relive it,
Yeah.
they made a remake on the Wii.
No way.
And
I
it
didn't know
is
this.
phenomenal. I beat it. It is
It's good.
phenomenal. It's about a 8 or 10 hour playthrough, not super long.
Wow.
It is super, like, this is the style, like, this is what your character in the blob look like in the game. It looks like hand-drawn art kind
Ah.
of style.
He's
It
holding
is-
it looks
I like that.
cutesy. I
Yeah,
don't know,
for the
like
YouTube kids.
Ghibli-esque.
I was amazed.
It is super cute, and it was such an homage to the original because it was exactly that. How do I get across that thing? Well, you give him the blue jelly bean and turn him into a bridge.
Yeah.
Super good.
Badass.
Good game.
call.
Good game.
Great
gotta
call,
check that
Raph.
out.
Oh my
That's,
god, I
that's a
adored
good
that
one.
game.
Yeah.
Boy and His Blob.
Unique as hell.
Yeah.
My number 2 is
Are you
a
number?
game
Are you
that
going
I actually
backwards
do-
or you're 4?
I'm sorry, not my
Yeah,
number 2.
yeah.
My number 4.
My
yeah.
second
yeah,
one.
yeah.
My numbers are all weird on my list here.
Yeah.
My number 4. Sorry, my number 4 is Star Wars.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's
This
a game.
Yeah, I know. You know, it's not the best Star Wars game, but it's the one that I played a lot of. And honestly, for me, the biggest thing is when you get to play as Han Solo, and that Han Solo music absolutely slaps. My number 3
Mhm.
is Double Dragon.
Ooh.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, I spent hours on end playing this game. It's a fun little brawler. You know, it's kind of like that other game that you mentioned earlier, Mac. One of the ones on your list,
River City Ransom. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it felt a lot like that, except you didn't have that co-op. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, no, I loved playing this game. You did have a versus mode in this, which I actually did play a lot with my sister and my neighbor.
Mhm.
You got to play as like the big Bobo dude, and
Yep.
like play as like one of the other little guys.
Mhm.
But this game has really good music. It looks a little funky. I actually like it better than the sequel, even though the sequel, I guess, is kind of a better game. It looks much better and plays much better, but very, very fun game. Very nostalgic for me. A lot of nostalgia with that game. But
Nice.
moving on to my actual number 2, and that is Super Mario Brothers 3.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Of
I mean,
course.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
Nice.
much. You know, there's many things to be said, and everything that's already been said about this game. It's probably the greatest platformer ever made, or one of the greatest platformers ever made.
Mhm.
Possibly a perfect game. I don't know. You know, the sprites in this game look gorgeous. I don't know. There's something I was watching Mac play because he was playing it this week on the Switch, and
Nice.
like the color scheme, like the color palette for that game is so comforting.
Mhm.
It feels like I don't know, like a dessert or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about 3 that I forgot to mention in our episode about number 2, because you remember number 2 was thrown off as a dream, right? Mario had
Yeah.
a dream the whole game.
Right. Yeah.
Miyamoto's been quoted as saying that Mario 3 is a stage play.
Yeah,
Right,
it
the
is. Yeah,
curtains
it's
open at
right
the
in the
beginning.
beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
there's
whole thing.
curtains in the
But
beginning.
not
You can
just
go behind
that.
set pieces.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Look at
yeah.
all of the levels and there's screws in the corners of a bunch of the hills.
Holding
Yeah,
everything
They have
yeah.
the shadows. You
That's
can go
funny.
behind some of them.
Yeah, and that's how you
Oh.
get the whistle. That first whistle you pop
Yeah.
behind the level, and then
Yep.
you get it later on in the castle.
Right.
That's actually how I usually beat that game, is using the whistle.
Oh, everybody did, yeah.
Um,
Because I saw
yes.
the wizard.
It's a hard
Yeah.
ass game.
That is another
Um,
one that I tried to play a lot because it's obviously very good. Couldn't do it as a baby.
Yeah,
Couldn't do it.
It's very, very hard game. Love it. But my number one,
Let's go.
I'm actually gonna go ahead and cue it in with that first track that I sent you.
Alrighty.
Go ahead and just start that up. Track 1.
Got it.
Oh,
hell
baby.
yeah.
Up, left, right, BA, start.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah, I
Great
played this
choice.
game last night,
Great choice.
and I beat it with the Konami code, of course.
Oh,
I'm not that good.
Yeah.
I'm not that good, but I
Our,
definitely
our
did
buddy
it.
Ben could do it without the code.
That's a tough game, man. That's a tough game. I play this more than any other NES game that I owned, honestly. Just it's a really great co-op experience. It's just a really cool aesthetic. And I guarantee you that this game influenced my tastes as an adult, honestly.
Yeah.
Like all the crazy Geiger-esque like aliens, like at the end, like
You
the
really
boss
like
defense.
Predator now?
Yeah, straight up. Yeah, Predator, Alien, like all that
Yeah.
stuff is right up my alley. I also noticed, like, playing this game, I was like looking through other NES games. A lot of NES games have the hero be a dude with a headband.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
really funny.
Because it was cool at the time.
It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the Rambo symptom.
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's
it's just
funny.
like maybe 20 years removed from the Vietnam War.
I thought it was
it's
just
got,
so
like,
you
that
could see
whole
where his
aesthetic
head
going.
was.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
okay,
Yeah,
that's his
That's
head.
probably the sprite excuse for it.
Yeah.
Yes,
It
for
really
sure.
serves a function, honestly.
Yeah.
When
This-
I was in middle school, I had a computer teacher, and now we're talking like 1994. He had a Contra arcade machine in his classroom.
Nice.
Oh,
And I remember
my
doing
God.
summer camp, and it's like if you did good on your assignments, whatever else, you could play freaking Contra at school.
Sick.
Yeah, dude, Contra is just honestly, for me, it's an infinitely replayable game. I can always hop in and have a good time with it, and it's so funny playing with friends and dying because I don't know why, something about dying in that game feels very hilarious to me. Like you know you get hit by something, and your dude just like flips in the air and just like blah, falls dead. And sometimes you'd end up dying in just the stupidest ways. Like I kept dying in one spot last night, just trying to jump from one platform to the other and just missing it by 1 pixel, just straight down the hole. Honestly, and the music in this game slaps too. I got one more track actually, and it's
Yep.
the boss fight music, which it always gets me really pumped
Oh,
whenever
yeah.
I hear it. If you want to go ahead and cue that up.
I can just do it for you. Wait for the beat to drop.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. I got my ass handed to me so
That
many
shit's
times for
gnarly.
this song. It's so good.
That boss that has the platforms on both sides,
Oh,
and he has
dude,
the
yes.
like sections at the top and
Yeah.
shoots those giant circular things down at you.
And then
That's
he's got
gnarly.
the cannons that are firing like 3 shots like straight down and diagonally. It's
Just
yeah,
so
such a good game.
different and neat the way the bosses worked in that game.
Yeah.
Mm.
A
But
classic.
yeah, that's my number one, guys.
Wow.
Contra, one of the greatest.
Yeah,
games
dude.
ever.
Contra
Great
at
choice,
the
great
top
choice.
of Raph's Carousel, a fantastic 2-player experience, a quintessential Nintendo game, I'd say.
What a beautiful
Well,
carousel.
That's our show, gentlemen. Those were our 4 Nintendo Entertainment System carousels. We hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, and go check us out on Instagram and TikTok. You can find links to all our stuff at linktree/the GTP. Join us next week where we'll be taking a hot steam. The segment where we talk about some of the new hotness that we've been playing on Steam. We want to thank Quenquich for the use of our theme song, Clash of the Droids. And, of course, we'd like to thank RetroGameTreasure.com. Owned and operated by the Megabuck himself, Retro Game Treasure is a subscription service that sends collectors bespoke boxes of video games every month. Simply make your profile at www.retrogametreasure.com and you'll receive games tailored to fill out your collection. That's right. You tell them what games you already have, right? You tell them what systems you have, and most importantly, you tell them what games you like. And then Buck and Princess M pack you a wonderful box of nostalgia each
Ooh.
month. RetroGameTreasure.com, obsessed with video games since 1985.
I've got new subs for you this week.
Go ahead and list them for me, Buck.
I think Rob the Robot's going to deliver them.
Mhm.
No, just kidding. This week's new subscribers: Arthur Major, AJ Green, Chris Teeter, Joel Joel Swartout, Rachel Jenkins, Jose Marquin, Chris Weller, Devin Patton, Juan Soltero, Jacob Dunham, Caitlin Sosby, Jacob Zimmerman, Abel Martinez, Carl Simpson, and Cassie Hoover.
Thank you
Rob
guys
says welcome.
so much for your subscriptions. My name is Max Stein, and I love the Game Treasure podcast. It's so bad.
It's
so
bad.
bad.
Rob.